I just assembled this matte white 12U shallow depth network cabinet. It's very affordable at about $200, but this shallow depth part can be a bit problematic. So in this video, I'll show you how to assemble this cabinet so that you don't run into any problems when you're trying to install your network equipment. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Bogdan Chperny, founder of Apex One IT, and we do small business IT. This here is that 12U 17-inch deep network cabinet from NavePoint. It looks quite nice, I can tell you, in matte white. And in this video, I'll show you everything that comes in the box, kind of best practices of where to assemble the vertical rails, for example, because that's going to be critical for you to consider kind of the size, the depth, and the equipment that you can fit in there. Overall, for this price and size of this cabinet in general, I think it's pretty good for anyone who has rack mountable devices, either for your house or small business, especially because if you're sharing the space of your IT equipment somewhere in the open, a nice lockable, fully enclosed network cabinet is the way to go rather than kind of an open box frame. And I bought this white version specifically because I want to see what the unified network gear would look like with this white cabinet. Now, I know Ubiquiti just recently released their own kind of enclosed and wall mountable 12U cabinets, of course in white, but they're around at least, I think, like twice as expensive. They do come pre-assembled as opposed to this, which is why we're making this video. But if you want to see a review on that cabinet, I'll need to get my hands on it, so let me know. Just post it down in the comments section down below. And let's get on with the video. Package, it says, is 51.6 pounds. Instruction manual, we'll just follow along. And that's the glass door. So just looking at this white, it looks pretty good. Yeah, I mean, it's metallic matte white. And that's definitely the top cover here. That's where you would have, I think it's 120 millimeter fans. That looks like the bottom plates. And I think there should be cable covers or covers for these cable pass-through holes. It's probably some hardware. This should be the vertical rails. We'll take a look. These are probably the side panels. And there's two of these. So it's really the frame front and the back. So one of these is for the front, one for the back. So yeah, these are the vertical rails and some other brackets that we'll take a look at here. So they're wrapped together. Let's see things like this guy right here, the side panels that pop open. It's together, but it's also individually wrapped, so that's a good touch. See, so that one is still wrapped as well. And then these are the vertical rails, and they're all labeled, even the ones you're going to install on the backside. And then in this hardware box, so they have everything labeled in the manual here, by the way. We're just gonna go right through that. But they do have included for you this guy, Bag B. It has hardware, let's just say, for 3 devices, okay, 3 1U devices. So 12 screws, cage nuts, all that, and some plastic washers as well. These are M6, yeah. So just keep that in mind. Some of the equipment you buy may or may not have cage nuts and the screws included. But it's nice to give you at least enough for 3 additional ones that you might not have hardware for. So kind of set that aside, that's for your equipment. Then the rest of this is for installation, well, assembly and installation, and they give you an Allen key. But man, I hate using these. 2 keys like this and locking hardware for the front glass door, and the side panels already have that hardware installed. The one for 15U, I believe 15 to 22U, so they have a lot of different versions. They come with casters, so you can roll this around easier. Right, this one is either going to just stand right in the ground, but really it's designed to wall mount. And the other thing it doesn't have that the other ones typically do is built-in fans. Large fans installed here. They're very loud. All that comes off of it is like a 3-prong outlet that you just plug in. So you need to have some kind of outlet switch that controls them on or off or on, or else it's on all the time and it's very loud, okay? So I typically, even with the ones that come with it, I replace them with something quieter, even if it's just 1 fan or 2. And I'll have a link for you, but typically I'll do the fans they have from AC Infinity. So they have the 120mm fans. With those, you can also couple it with like a thermal control unit that has like different preset temperatures. And I'll show you that on the screen here. And that's maybe like 15, 20 bucks. And that way you can just have it to trigger at a certain temperature and they're much, much quieter. And now let's go ahead and assemble this. And if, by the way, if this is helpful to you so far, please like the video, of course, and subscribe for more videos like this. These here are the only tools that you need, which is not a lot. So this is a 5mm hex and a number 2 Phillips, and maybe a pocket knife to get the box open. All right, so just place your bottom piece down, and we just want, okay, so these slots right here, you just want that on the inside. Just place that in. Right, so these slots here and here go towards the inside, and these right here are towards the outside. Then grab your horizontal beams, and you want to position so these slots go over these frames, okay? And it's just as you see here, this is towards the outside like this. And you'll see these bottom holes line up with the holes in the bottom plates. And then you'll grab your D bag. So D with the E bag flange nuts here. And these are M8s. So from the bottom, the bolt goes through the bottom. Okay, so all I did so far is I just laid this on its side, and I'm installing the second horizontal rail here, just to show you a little different angle. All right, so this is that M8 bolt, goes in through here, and you can see how it's done on the bottom, so there's 4. And hopefully it goes through there. It is slotted. Okay, and then the flange nut on the inside. Let me just show you that right here one more. So screw. See, and then on the inside, just like these flange nuts, and they have this kind of design where they're going to eat into the metal, so you don't actually need a back wrench on this. Then grab your Allen key, so either that tool or this is a 5mm. And if you just hold the flange nut on the back, just slightly, it'll hold. You sometimes have to do all of them a little bit first, and then they're going to start to eat into that metal and not move. And you can secure it all the way down. Okay, so the bottom's in, and while we have this open, if you're not using the bottom kind of cable pass-through here, then just grab this cover, and they're the same for the top and bottom. And grab the C bag here, which are M4 screws. And now we're going to repeat essentially the same thing on the top plate. It's all very similar. And same thing here, this flat piece right here goes on the inside. And I just noticed, so first kind of defect, I don't know if you can see that. It's not too bad. This is bent a bit, and spin this around. And we have the paint right here scuffed off pretty bad. But you won't see that, so not too bad. Actually, this horizontal bar will cover it. So just like before, this flat kind of end goes on the inside. And those same M8 bolts with 5mm Allen hex. Now, one of the most critical parts, especially with these more shallow depth or just not your standard depth racks or cabinets, you definitely want to think about where these vertical rails are going. So I installed one side just for you to consider some things because you want to get it right the first time, or else just a little bit of a pain to change it later. So these here, right, are your vertical rails, and these ones are nicely labeled. The thing is, so they're positioned as you see here, right? This 90-degree angle goes like that, and the flange goes towards the inside. Now, the back one is essentially the same. It's just that it's going to face the back, right? You won't see these numbers there towards the back like so. Okay, so what's important here is that, this cabinet measures something like 17 and 3/4, okay? Now that obviously doesn't mean you can't fit something in here that's 17 and 3/4. The other one, more standard, is 23 inches deep, and as you can imagine, it's gonna be 23 is something right here, okay? So what this means is, first of all, of course, before you buy this, you want to see or measure or check the dimensions of the devices you have and make sure it can fit here. The way I have it installed right now, it's kind of someone's standard by the book, okay? They have these cross beams here as well. Definitely if you're going to put like a heavy UPS, battery backup UPS in the bottom, or like a Synology that has a bunch of hard drives, okay, it can get heavy. And then it starts to matter, I've saw these cabinets before where they're so loaded so much that when you take these side panels off and then you try to put it back on, it's skewed, that's actually hard to put it back in. So this should help with that. And now the way I have it installed, you can see there's actually back here, there's all these mounting points. I mean, you could literally put two rails here and here. So the way I spaced it is that this one, the back one's installed on the 4th square hole, so 4th position from the back, and the front one is on the 3rd one. And now what that gives me is the ability to install this cross member, because the distance between the front and the back has to be about 11 inches. And it also gives me plenty of clearance in the front and plenty in the back. Now, if you need something deeper, let's say you're installing something like this MVR from Unify. So it measures like 12 and 3/4, okay? The other thing though you have to consider is the power cable. This rack in the back is going to have a back plate. And when you install this bends down, but you should count for like at least 2.5, 3 inches, probably at the worst case, of how much space you need in the back before it hits the back of the cabinet. So all you do, just measure from the back here. Okay, that's where your back plate will be. And to the front of this rail right here, this kind of horizontal one, that's about 2.25. So you already know, in the place I have it positioned, this rear vertical rail, I have it at about 3 inches, 3 and then 1/8 or something, okay? So what that tells me is that from the back of this rail here, I have more than 3 inches of clearance before it hits the back plate. So that means I can kind of measure from the back of it forward and see how far forward I should put this front rail. Again, that's if you need the 3 inches in the back. If you don't, then just push it back, right? You still have 3 other positions you can move it back. But in this position right now, the deepest piece I can install unit device will be about 11.5 inches. So technically this NVR wouldn't even fit there. Now, the way it would fit there, I will scoot this rear one back because I know I only need about 2.5 inches for this back plug to clear it. And then, just from previous installs, I know that you can safely install this not at the 3rd position, but in the 2nd one. And you'll still have plenty of clearance for your front cables. So you have all this space all the way up to here, where that patch cable can sit. Okay, so you'll have, if you plug this in, you can kind of tell that you'll have plenty of space still. Now, if you move it past that, if you move it to the very first position in the front, now your patch cables, they're going to be pushing against the glass, I think, for sure. But if I do that, if I move this forward and I move that back, and when you move it, it's about 3/4 inch jumps. So let's say now I'm starting 3/4 further back. Yeah, now I can tell that if I move both of these further apart, I guess I don't even have to move the rear one, honestly, just the front one. I can tell if I move the front one forward just one notch, this NVR will fit. Okay, so that's the important thing with these units. They're nicer to handle, they don't stick out as much, right? Lighter. Your equipment is closer to the rear of where it's going to be wall mounted. So some devices it can't work with this, like a Synology RS822 Plus, like 1U CyberPower, super long battery backup UPS, they just won't fit. That's why sometimes you want to. I know the one going in here is going to be a 2U kind of short depth battery backup from APC, and that just works much better. But your typical things, and like your UniFi Pro Max, your UniFi Pro 24 PoE switch, even they'll all fit in here, no problem. Some of the larger switches, like the UniFi Pro HD PoE, I mean, that guy's not gonna fit in here for sure. Okay, so consider that before you mount these. Okay, now let me show you the way it works. You just grab, so from your bag A, grab the cage nut, and you're going to install it, so with these flanges here, horizontally from the outside in. Okay, so this one, like I said, is in the third position. So you just get one side in, then push, and the other side goes in like that. Same thing on the top and bottom. And then grab the screw that's in there and the plastic washer. And they go in like so, and it kind of hides the screw head. Okay, then just position this in place, and you will see it has these slots. That's where you're actually installing the rail on the top and the bottom. Okay, now you want to start it by hand. Now, one thing to know here is that these, because they're slotted, they actually ride like forward and back quite a bit. I don't know, like half an inch at least, if not more. The way I like to install them, just so it's consistent on both sides and on top and bottom, is you see this flange right here. So I align the back of this bar with the back of this horizontal flange. So the back of this vertical rail to the back of this guy right here. Okay, so on the top and the bottom. Okay, and that's what the cage nuts with the bolts look like. And then on the back side, like I said, same thing, except now these cage nuts are going in position 4 from the back. Now for the back rail, so you see this is the front one, the way it's positioned. For the back rail, to get this crossbar kind of perfectly 11 inches, I push this in forward kind of as much as not as much as I can, but just so the screw doesn't come out kind of the back side here. And again, that way I'm just doing that to be consistent, and it's easy to keep that consistent between all 4 mounting positions for the rear vertical rails. Because like I said, you see how much it slides around quite a bit. And then for this cross beam, I just choose position 6 with this little notch. It's the same kind of idea. Just put that in. The cage nut. Okay, so from the outside towards the center. And you're using the same hardware with these plastic washers. Okay, and then the screw comes in from the inside out. Okay, and to be clear, you don't have to install these, okay? So that's why it's totally fine to move these further apart or adjust them as I said, as needed. This is just if you have something to place that's not rack mountable. I mean, if you have like a modem or something like that, it's typically smaller. This doesn't help you anyways. You probably just install a shelf, or maybe let's just say this wasn't rack mountable. This is, but you see your equipment would just go on here like so. Now we're going to get this door up. First, you actually want to grab this little washer they have in here. Okay, that's in bag C. So that goes in where the bottom hinge goes. That's just to give you the proper spacing. And now drop the top one down. And what we're missing here is the lock. So that's in this H bag. Make note of this, the way it's stacked right now. We're actually going to remove it. So first of all, the lock, right, is slotted. There's only kind of one way it can go in. And take this large locking nut, and you'll notice there's I forget what this is called, like texture in the front, again, to grab, kind of like those flanged nuts, to grab onto the metal and stay in place. So just slide that over the lock barrel and hand tie it all the way. Now you can use some pliers to tie in this as well, but it shouldn't go anywhere. Then before we install kind of the actual lock here, you want to make note of the orientation of this lock. So when it's horizontal, that's actually unlocked. And you can check, right? Because when I turn this kind of counterclockwise, well, it doesn't turn actually. So really right now it's unlocked. And once I turn it clockwise, it'll go up and it'll unlock. So that's the way you want to orient this. Okay, so the kind of screw that's pre-installed, you want to remove. There's this tiny screw, serrated sort of washer, a flat washer. So take that all off, install the lock, and then put that hardware back on. Okay, let me just test that. So that slot on the front here is for locking, right? Okay, my floor here is not straight or something, but typically these will actually close pretty easily. One of the coolest features here as well is just how easy it is, how accessible it is. So let's grab a side panel. And either side works. You'll notice there's these tabs, flanges at the bottom too, that kind of you place behind. Okay, a little better. But you'll see it has these buttons, push them in, and that's in. And then you get your keys and you can actually lock each side panel as well. See that? And just repeat on the other side. And for the back, you would just need the C bag again, the number, I think it's M4 screws, 6 of these. And then the back panel, it shouldn't matter in the orientation, or like top and bottom. Looks pretty nice. It's real nice, definitely, to see a white network cabinet, especially once we get some UniFi gear in here. That's going to be pretty sweet. I would say, as you can tell, this door is still a bit more skewed than I would like. It's quite a bit of gap here, almost no gap at the top. Honestly, just from the other ones that I've seen, the other black ones, they have not been like that. So I think this one's just a bit off. Otherwise, it looks pretty clean. There are no extra, let's say, extra screws or anything. There are these two M4 screws left, and that's for wall mounting. So we're not doing that here, but just so you can see how it'll work, this here is the mounting bracket. Okay, so it has these two flanges that stick out. Okay, this is where the unit itself will slide on from the top down. And obviously this guy gets attached to your wall. So they include, kind of with no instructions, these are actually, so 4 of these, that's in the iBag. And I wish they kind of put some instructions and even the size of this. It looks like a 1/2 inch, but this is a anchor sleeve. All right, there's a lot of different kind of concrete type anchors, but this specifically is a anchor sleeve. You can kind of tell the way it would work is you drill out a hole for this size. You kind of might need to tap it in. And then as you tie this down, right, so let me just show you. Kind of you would put this in the wall, right, with just the sleeve and this part right here. That's the important part. You put that through, and then you put the mounting bracket on, and then all the rest of this hardware. And then the idea is, as you tighten up this nut, this sleeve expands in the concrete, so you can use this in concrete, I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's called a concrete anchor sleeve. You can also probably use it in brick, just not hollow like CMU block. It's designed to expand in something like concrete. Now, kind of a bit annoyingly is that you basically have to use a backer plate on this guy because this is not 16 inches on center. So for example, well, this right here, the actual mounting to the wall cabinet is 16 inches, but these holes are not, okay? These holes right here. So you kind of have to use plywood or something like that because these holes will not line up with your studs. So to show you on the back, once you have this mounted, so you bring the cabinet in and then this locks in like that. And then there's these two M4 screws still left, and that's for these two holes right here. So once you have this on the wall, on the bracket, from the inside of the cabinet, okay, not from here, from the inside of course, you're going to secure this bracket just in case, no one can bump this and it'll fall off. So that's what these two are for. And this does support, I think for this one is 130 pounds of equipment here, which is quite a bit. Again, you just want to make sure you mount it well if you're mounting on the wall. And if you want to leave it on the ground, I would just be cautious on leaving it on a finished floor, because what you're really resting on is on the heads of these, it looks like 8 screws. So you either want to install something more heavy duty that's thicker than this, at least like more than an 8-inch for sure, or it has to be sitting on some kind of commercial floor, concrete floor, then you're fine. But on a finished floor, something like LVP in your house, that's not gonna work. If you want to go that route, I would say you probably want to just size up a unit, go with a 15U, get the one with the casters. It'll be easier even to install things, move things around, and you won't destroy your floors. This specific cabinet is actually going to a customer on-site for an on-site install. If you want to see that video and some Unify equipment installed in it, then click on this top video when that's ready. Otherwise, you can click on this bottom video if you want to see in-depth how to install rack mountable equipment in a very similar NavePoint. That's just a 9U, a black version of that cabinet. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.